Sail Pensacola is about the business and fun of sailing on the Pensacola Bay. My name is Tim Reichon, and today I will talk to Harvey Gendry of BeFoil about their new 16-foot carbon foiling catamaran. Why? Because sailing is our business. We are less than 2 weeks away from the AC-37 preliminary regatta, which will be sailed in Barcelona on the foiling AC-41 design monohull. And we just finished, about 2 months ago, the 10th annual foiling week at Garda that is still generating a stream of spectacular video and images of racing classes that included the Moth, Wasp, ETF-26, Wingfoil, 69F, Flying Phantom, IQ Foil, and the Sumoth. Not all sailing is foiling, but foiling has certainly captured a new design and performance trajectory in our sport that appears to be surging with no end in sight. Against that backdrop, BeFoil introduced their foiling carbon 16-foot catamaran to an enthusiastic field of performance-focused sailors. When you scan the brochure of this boat, the coalescence of certain terms catches your attention. Carbon, foiling, convertible, and catamaran are the descriptors we haven't seen wrapped into a single craft. To dig into these features, we reached out to Harvey Gendry of BeFoil. He agreed to visit Pensacola on September 16th to present this boat in person, and we'll chat today about what has gone into the design and philosophy of BeFoil. Welcome, Harvey Gendry of BeFoil, and congratulations on such an exciting and successful event at Foiling Week.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you very much. I'm excited to have this opportunity with the Pensacola Sailing Association and share more about the current BeFoil 16 Carbon and our plans to grow this company and participate to this very exciting industry.
Thanks, Harvey. It's great to see you. I just wanted to have you talk a little bit about your sailing interest, your background, and then how you became involved with BeFoil.
So my sailing experience go way back. You know, when I turned 15, all my friends had motorbikes back in France, and my dad said, you know, I'm not ready to buy you a motorbike, but you like sailing, I'll buy you a sailboat. And I was fortunate enough to have a 505 as a first boat and started sailing and racing. And I joined a business school which was running a sailing race, which was the largest and still is the largest student sailing race in Europe, and joined the racing committee and got trained. And when I finished and graduated from this business school, my first investment was buying a boat with a friend. So we bought a 30-foot half-tonner sailboat and raced in the Rock race in the UK for several years, and we actually participated to 4 Fastnet races with a class finish of 4th as our best result. And we got 2 more boats. We went up to 35-foot size, and at some point I left Europe for Asia, and we sold the boats, and I started sailing laser. And sailing with the sailing team in Singapore, and sailing later in the US, where we moved in the early 2000s, and had the chance to live on a lake in Austin and do a lot of racing every week, and one design 11-meter and JD and all kind of boats. And I'm now living in Minnesota, and I'm finally managed to combine my passion with business, which is better late than ever. You know, sometimes some people leave their passion in their job their entire life. But I was a 3M executive, and I always kept sailing in the back of my mind. So I'm a co-owner in a 55-foot catamaran. We're sailing in the Caribbean. Kind of stopped racing at a high level. I still do a little bit of informal racing, you know, what we call beer can in the US. And in 2017, for a friend, I had the opportunity to meet the founder of BeFoil at the Nautic show in Paris. And I went on the booth and I loved what they were doing and the way they were doing it. And they asked me to join the board, and I did it, taking, I would say, a more operational role in international development, especially the US, and also helping in a couple of areas in Europe and Asia. And it's been 5 years. It's our third boat, and it's probably the one that is the most advanced, and I would say the best boat in terms of product. And so that's a little bit of my background with BeFoil. I also have to say the BeFoil strategic board is incredibly strong. It looks like the board of a much bigger company, and it's a fun board to work with because they are very operational. They are not very high level. They can be high level, but they are hands-on, and they're really helping in the development of the company. You know, it's a very good, very strong starter board with some very famous personalities, including the former president of Renault Formula One team, who win 11 world championship with Alain Prost and Ayrton Senna and a couple of other drivers. And the guy is 78 years old, and he's still working. I think he'll work his entire life. And he's working on a couple of similar projects. And it's fantastic to have him and his experience on board.
Fantastic. What is the history of BeFoil as a brand? How did they get started, and what was the earlier boats before the Carbon 16?
So the founder of BeFoil is a serial entrepreneur, Benjamin Magna. Is he actually has a pioneer of aviation. The second man who fly after Louis Blériot in France and the UK was a Magnard. And Benjamin is kind of his pioneer spirit anchored in him. And he's always thought about a foiling boat. So he had a lab boat called voile avion, which means actually flying boats, you know, or airplane boat, and it was the initial platform for BeFoil. The idea for BeFoil was, you know, two T-foil being foil, and the brand would kind of naturally, we're looking for a brand which could travel better than voile avion, a brand that would look international. And the first boat we developed was actually a rotor-molded boat, 16-foot boat for sailing school, which sold pretty well. But the issue was actually the boat was stretching the capabilities of rotor molding. It was a little too heavy, and it was a little too flexible for the speed we attained with the boat. So we got a couple of 20, 25 knots runs with the boat, and it was starting to bend. It was not doing very well under very warm weather. It was becoming a little soft. And so we decided to look into a higher end boat, and we built a BeFoil Sport, which was a glass fiber boat in 2021, which was elected Small Catamaran of the Year by Multi-Hull Magazine in 2021. And we realized we had to race. And the idea came to create a boat that would combine F16 and foiling. So the pinnacle of the 16-foot catamaran, but quickly convertible. So you could race in F16 class at any level. You could win. And then you could transform the boat in 30 minutes as in a foiler and go foiling. Or you would only buy the boat with foiling options. And and keep in mind that at some point or the day there is no wind, you could go with a traditional Archimedean boat. And so that's what we've done, and we've kind of optimized it for both to the point where the boat sailed very well with the daggerboards. It was vice champion, European vice champion just a couple of months ago, and the boat is foiling at 25 knots, you know. And our idea is actually to bring it to 30 knots. We're kind of reaching the limit of the T foil, so we're thinking into an option at some point where we would have L foil to go really fast, but obviously we would lose a little bit of stability, so we don't want to lose the DNA of the boat, which is a very high performance boat, but also a very accessible boat. And it has to remain like this.
That really does seem to be one of the most exciting things about it, is to be able to get on the boat without some of the technical challenges of a boat that doesn't have T-foils all the way around and pretty much sails flat. It's a pretty interesting design and very exciting.
Yes. So the company is based in Lorient. Lorient is kind of the European hub for offshore racing. Most of the largest IMOCA team, the Ultim boat, the Ocean 50, the Mini, are based in Lorient. All the big team are based there, including, you know, the American team who won the ocean race, 11th Hour Racing. They were based in Lorient and had all the support of the team there. It's a former submarine base that has been transformed into an offshore racing hub. Very impressive facility. So we're designing and assembling the boat there. The hulls are manufactured in Portugal, initially at a company that has made a lot of high volume sailboat and kayak. And the sail, I would say the low-end sails are built in Portugal, and the higher-end racing sails are built in France. Most of the hardware is coming from Arken. It's typically an Arken boat, which makes it a little more expensive. But we think the hardware they are developing is so good that it's hard to lower expectations. The foil are coming from France or Switzerland, depending on the timing, and so is the mast. The mast is also coming from France.
Are the foil and mast fabrications describable or specified in such a way that you can get more than one manufacturer to build them?
Yes, and we had to, because one of the issues at the launch of BeFoil 1 year ago, just after COVID, was we couldn't get enough mind share from the supplier base. Right after the Vendée Globe in 2022, there was about 12 or 30 new 60-foot IMOCA boats being built in France. And when we were looking at the email list where, you know, the CEO of this foil company was apologizing for being late, there was only big sailing teams or big boat brands, you know, Beneteau and all the. And so we thought we're not going to be served well. We're too small, you know, we're building 10, 20 boats initially, and then they had this 5 million project. And so we were kind of diversified our supplier base. We have also built a couple of hulls in France. We have mold set now in Lorient. We are even thinking we could mold the glass fiber boat in Lorient. We have enough space. So we're looking into, we're very flexible. We had to be very flexible. The industry is growing 15, 20% a year with a small base. And I'm going to probably upset some people, but the supplier base is not always as professional as we could expect. You know, I'm coming from the electronics industry, and it's not always as professional as we could expect. And so we have to be flexible with our supplier base.
Is that the professionalism side of it? Is it related to the quality of the product, or is it more the supply chain side of delivery?
No, it's more service lead time. You know, as you said, supply chain lead time, response time, sharing problems, responding to email, meeting commitments, um, and you know, I'm sure the big sailing team have a lot of project manager working on that. Um, and what's good is I believe we are all improving the capabilities and making this supplier segment more professional over time. I think the expectations are high, and they have to comply.
It seems that the demand for their product is only growing at probably now an exponential rate as more and more companies and designers enter the market space with new designs. There will be even more demand for their product. How are they going to expand fast enough to keep up with that demand?
So few of them, the largest shipyard actually have raised funds or been acquired by larger company in the last 12, 18 months. So CDK and Multiplast are the largest boat builder in France and in Europe, and they've recently raised funds to support their expansion. The foil company are also facing very strong demand, also demand coming from other segments like mobility segments, you know, electric mobility, and beside racing and entertainment. So I think everybody is kind of a development mode right now, and obviously at some point the industry will see in the industry what we've seen in other segments, which is some concentration. And the big brand, the big shipyard like Beneteau and Jeannot in France, and Hunter in the US, and Grand Soleil in Italy, they'll eventually enter foiling, maybe through M&A. You know, so we'll also be there when the time is right. You know, I think this will require significant funding and footprint over time.
Do you think that there's any chance of the U.S. getting into the fabrication game? We seem like we're quite removed, a little bit non-competitive, really no development, well, not much development in boat building and fabrication. Is that something that, as the market of consumers for these products expands in the U.S., there will be a growth of fabrication in the U.S.?
I think so. You know, traditional sailboat from, for instance, Beneteau are now built in, I believe it's in North Carolina, and I'm sure there'll be some local brands emerging in the multi-hull segment. We've always been wondering why Hobby Cat would not be involved in this segment, and you know, we have a dream at some point to talk to them when we can stand on our feet and fly and engage. And they took some other direction with kayaking, but they should have probably built that boat. You know, they should have probably expanded. They went pretty high in the chain with the FX, and so yeah, and I believe there is an opportunity for the US to develop elements in sub-assemblies, like we talk about foils, we talk about rigs, we talk about sails, so that at some point, and that will probably come through the America's Cup, you know, from the top, and maybe some initiative from the bottom, like yours, like Pensacola Association attracting attracting companies. So that's also the reason why you're so excited to join your initiative, Tim.
Well, I am optimistic about it, and I'm glad that you see that there is a reason for optimism for having that fabrication expand in the US. And we really feel like we have the right ecosystem for it in terms of production costs, cost of living for families, and waterfront, and just really a good package to attract some attention from expanders that need to build more product.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's not a question of capabilities. It's more a question of, mind share. And this is going, as I said, there's some high level initiative with the America's Cup boat and the AC40, and I think we need a couple of grassroots initiative like what you're doing, and that will build sufficient interest to grow the segments, and manufacturers and builders will join. There's no doubt the U.S. is a great place to build sailboats.
What do you see as the market in the U.S. in terms of getting some penetration here, and see if you can catch interest and fire among the performance sailors in the U.S.?
So what we've seen so far is, I would say, the segment of the casual foilers, or the yeah, I would call them the casual foilers, and the experience segment. We call it experience. People looking to experience the fun of foiling, and is still pretty small but growing. So we have a lot of interest, but very few people deciding to buy a boat. And so people looking, and there's a couple of issues also with the sailing base. How can you launch the boat? How can you bring the boat back? How can you replace the foil by daggerboards? And I believe we need to demonstrate the boat in the US, and that will make things easier, because whenever we do it, it's not as complicated as it looks. And we've actually sold a BeFoil 16S on the East Coast on a lake, and the boat is for sale for one reason, is that his owner wants to upgrade to the carbon boat, and his owner was actually one of I would say the contributing customers. He's the one who told us the boat is great, but I would like a lighter and faster boat. I want a carbon boat. And the guy is a serial entrepreneur, very well known in the electronics industry. He was in Free Startup, founder of Free Startup, which got acquired by Cisco and Ericsson. And he's passionate for speed, and at some point I would love connecting him with you and the team in Pensacola. But as soon as he sold his boat, he'll buy a new carbon boat. But there are not too many people like him. We believe there is probably more potential customers in the US coming from the AC40 or the ETF26, the larger foiler, and interested into a boat, I would say a grassroots performance foiler, like the 16 carbon, or young sailor a young racer who wants to build a foiling experience beside their current support. When you look into the most famous sailor, they all started to learn foiling, and they pick a couple of platforms, and BeFoil 16 could be one. So we think the segment may be a little more mature right now. That's why we're so interested into the Pensacola initiative. It's probably a year or two behind Europe. France, Switzerland, Italy are very mature market, or more mature market. Germany as well, with areas where the big lakes are. there's a stronger pull there from and more mature segments.
Is there any history or any clues from how the European sailors have developed and how they entered the sport and then matured into their higher performance trajectory?
It's hard to tell. I have the impression, especially in I forgot Spain, by the way, when I mentioned Spain and Italy, but especially Spain is a growing segment. There are some areas of Spain where you can sail 24 months a year, and that's a big thing. I would say the integration of sailing school with university is very strong in some areas of Europe. But I think college sailing is also very solid from what I've seen. My impression is the support used in college sailing are a little old. You know, they need to be. When my daughter did college sailing, it was 420. It was it's a 70-year-old boat, you know, in terms of design. It's a great boat, but at some point it was not fun. It has to be fun, and I'm wondering if the sailing in the US always capture this part of fun. I know it's very competitive, it's very strong. The Olympic class are very strong. I know actually in France, we benchmark the US sailing team, you know, we benchmark the Olympic system. So there's some real strengths, you know. Maybe there's something about the boat support that have been selected and building fun in the process, and foiling is fun. So that's where maybe these boats, these foiling boats, and the kites, the foiling kites, and the wing will have a significant role, bringing new people into sailing.
I think we have experienced in Pensacola a surge in youth interest in sailing, which is very exciting, and we're going to have to expand our capacity to deliver instruction for that. And from the standpoint of thinking about how to make sailors, it is different and new to see Sail GP and these other foiling sports, foiling events, have the public attention that they're getting. It is inspirational, and I think it does draw people to the sport in a way that has not been seen before, probably because of the speeds and the thrill aspect of it. And once people are inspired and want to do it, then having a craft that they can learn on and easily find themselves foiling will be really helpful in their growth, I think. So that's one thing that's really one of the many things that's really exciting about your boat, in the sense that you could probably accelerate your development as a high performance sailor simply because you can go from a relatively traditional platform, maybe a laser or something like that, and get on a BeFoil 16 and not be overwhelmed, and maybe not have some of the challenges that you'd even have doing wing foiling. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, no, absolutely. And yeah, I think so. And maybe if you compare, I don't think it's I don't think the US has significant issues to address, else than it needs a couple of catalyzers. You know, it needs a couple of initiative that can accelerate the penetration of foiling, and some have to come from the top. I believe the America's Cup Challenge and the AC40 is one. What 11th Hour did is another one, because you know they actually beat all the European teams at their own game, and but you look at Europe, and not only France, but also Italy, Switzerland, the UK, this competitive foiling segments is much broader. You know, now the mini are foiling, the the IMOCA are foiling. Most of the multi-hulls are foiling. And so people coming from these racing classes, they're actually creating an excitement that brings new, younger people into foiling. And it doesn't exist in the US. There's pockets of it in the US. That's why I'm saying I think the US is just maybe a couple of years behind, but the market is very large.
We're excited. We want to figure out how to make more sailors and get them into this high performance market. Of course, we want to make races, and we also want to encourage economic development and industry and fabrication to grow in concert with that market penetration. So we're interested in all those things. Are there other models in the pipe besides the foiling Carbon 16 that you're considering, or is this going to be the focus going forward as you consider your market expansions?
It's our current focus, but we are actually looking almost parallel now into a fiberglass version of the Carbon that would have just fiberglass hulls, same specifications, carbon glass hulls and mast, aluminum mast, and maybe aluminum foils that would be a little that would be light, but not that expensive. And we could hit price points that are probably 30% lower. And we are also looking into an entry-level boat, which could be a foiling laser, would be also a catamaran. 11 foot is what we're looking for right now. There's a couple of innovation on the rig that we are considering. That would be probably 2025 boat. The fiberglass boat would be launched in 2024 and 11 foot in 2025. We are thinking, although it's not fully formalized on the roadmap, to an 18-foot boat, because it's a large segment. It's a segment that has also a lot of interest in longer distance sailing, like red, experience sailing. It would be very easy to just expand the current design. And we are looking into electrification. We are thinking about a little electric engine that could be on the boat just to leave the shore and come back when it's difficult access. You cannot sail. You have to go into more shallow water with your foil, or you just want to have fun in the and there's no wind, and go foiling with an electric engine. So a couple of people on the board that regularly remind us of that it would be nice. The 11 boat could be a great platform to do that. And we are actually, the 11-foot boat, we're actually thinking to integrate electrification into the statement of work.
Interesting. Now, I can't imagine that you haven't talked to the people at Melga's and thought about putting foils under scows in Minnesota. Is there any consideration for that to happen with the boats that are built up there and sailed in the Midwest?
Not really. There's a lot of people doing that very well in France. There's a lot of designers and architects that actually put foil on scows. Actually got the inspiration from the US scows, from the body merge scows, into first traditional sailboats. And I remember very well, the first one was probably about 7 years ago. It was a mini class, and the architect is called David Raison, like Reason in the US. And he got this idea that the scow would be faster and longer sailing, and especially for a small boat. Now, most of the mini are scows, and about 10% of them are foiling. They're still, and the one that are foiling are much faster and winning all the races. And so it will come. And then it has expanded into Class 40 and IMOCA. All the newest IMOCAs are scars. And, 11th Hour is actually in between because it had a different program. The program was Win the Ocean Race. So I think it's coming, and there's a couple of cruising boats now that have adopted this scar design. Not one with foils yet, but it will eventually come. It seems both are very compatible. And, an architect will tell you why better than I would, but it's very clear that it has been demonstrated in Mini and Class 40 and 60.
Yeah, very exciting. We'll have to find new owners for our big non-foiling cruisers and upgrade to faster foiling cruising boats for
Yeah,
faster
I mean,
transit.
upgrade an e-scow design to foiler. It would, and there's actually a two-person sailboat that looks like a scow for sailing school in. There's already a couple of people looking at this in Europe. So there is a boat. I think it's called Peacock, and it looks more as a fireball than a scow. But do you remember the fireball?
Yes, I love the
It was
fireballs.
one
Yeah.
of the yeah, beautiful boat. And so there are a couple of foilers, small foilers that looks like the fireball with a little more volume under. And so they are in between a scow and a fireball. But I think it will eventually come.
I just think
That
this
would be a
is,
great boat. That would be
wouldn't that be
fantastic.
great? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's such an exciting time to see these innovations. I mean, I don't know. I've sailed since I was, in the 70s, and things have been kind of static really for a while. And then really there's just been this explosion of design considerations, and just everything is on the move. The sails are different. The considerations of sail control are different. The hull forms are all over the place. It's really exciting, and I just can't help but think it is going to be that excitement and that innovation is going to attract more attention, and more people are going to be drawn to the sport.
I agree totally. And what's exciting also at the top of the pyramid, you are seeing large companies, technology companies joining the sport, not only as sponsors, but to participate into the innovation, whether it's electronics or boat design. The Mercedes Formula One team is helping the British AC Challenge. Red Bull is helping the Swiss Challenge, and the Red Bull Formula One team, and a couple of the other teams are actually looking into sailing as a diversification. And there's a lot of opportunities to also learn from there and share. And I think eventually some of these improvements will cascade down. And we probably need, if anything, you've mentioned it earlier in the discussion, we need a broader industry base in the US, not only powerboats, right? The US is very powerboat. When I buy a powerboat, I'm going to buy a US powerboat. I don't have the boat I'm looking for in France or anywhere else in Europe. If I buy a sailboat, it's more likely going to be a French or British or Italian sailboat, because there is much less offering in the US, and the offering is a little classic or traditional, not classic, but traditional, on the edge of being outdated. And so I think that's probably the biggest opportunity for this industry to expand its base.
Well, we certainly believe that, and And we're going to do everything we can to figure out how to assist industry that is advanced in Europe to consider entry into the U.S. manufacturing market to get a footprint here. And of course, we really want to help companies with a product like yours also get a footprint in the U.S. because just exposing these new boats to the U.S. market will result in some conversion, no doubt. We'll be able to pull in paddle boarders, kayakers, all sorts of proto and pre-sailor avatars. I think we can expose to these new platforms, and they will be drawn in. So we've got to do what we can at the ground level to make it accessible for companies like yours that have new innovations to get into this market space, so we can accelerate the sport in the U.S. We may never catch up to Europe, but we would certainly hope to get a much broader participation of recreational, experiential, and of course the racing sailing segments.
And I like what you're doing, what you're thinking to develop around university projects. And I believe maybe the next phase, and I'm sure there's some people in the U.S. They're already thinking about it. But how could we start with college sailing? In Europe, a lot of the sailing schools have already integrated wing foil, kite, and a foiler boat into their offering, and they are generally not depending on college. It's in the US, the university sport and the college sport is very strong, much stronger than in Europe. In Europe, it's independent schools. They are generally linked to the federation, the sailing federation. But we need to think about that and what would be the right boat. May not be the BeFoil 16 initially, but maybe there'll be the BeFoil 11, but like the laser right now, and all the 420.
Yeah, very exciting stuff. Well, tell me more about what your presentation will encompass in Pensacola on September 16th and what you plan to show and tell us there.
So it's going to be our plan is to have a 45 minutes presentation at the max that would focus on the company, just a little bit about who we are and who is the team. Go a little deeper into the concept of the BeFoil 16 carbon, especially around sailing in a traditional way in F16 and foiling and going from one to the other in less than 30 minutes with a boat that has basically won every F16 Formula 16 Class 16 race this year, and so with a couple of very exciting videos that will support that, and I'll talk a little bit about the business development. What's our focus? We only have 5 main business development initiatives, so I'll talk a little bit about them, and then I'll talk about the BeFoil Ambassador Program, which is a program where we offer a BeFoil 16 carbon at a very low price point, and we are expecting our client to be able to provide us some feedback, participate into some marketing communication initiative, and be eventually available for a couple of trials, and then have a boat with all the technical support from the BeFoil racing team and deep discounts on hardware and accessories, and have, ideally, we would love to have one of these boats in Pensacola. Potentially we have one on the East Coast, but we would love to have one in Pensacola as a future outcome of this presentation. and then have the racing team joining me. So the two world champion sailors, they've won basically everything in 16-foot catamaran that you can think of, and also the architect of the boat I mentioned earlier, who's designed this boat and before the Flying Phantom and the ETF-26, and is also very experienced from F16 racer. So I had these three people with me in the presentation, and if I can't answer a question, they'll chime in. Now, if there are racers in the attendance, they would love to connect with Eric and Emmanuel, and if they haven't connected with them yet, I think they would love to. I hope to build some connection out of it.
Yes, for sure. We are going to stream it. We're going to stream your presentation and all of the folks that join you by remote to our YouTube and Facebook channels. And we're going to market it to U.S. yacht clubs and classes, sailing classes that we can reach, so that we can really expose your brand and your championship sailors to the U.S. market in a more effective way than depending on an in-person visit to every single one of those locations in the U.S. So we're going to try to use the technology for that. Well, I'm really excited about you coming to Pensacola, and so look forward to what you're going to bring in terms of discussion and energy. And it's going to be a fantastic discussion. I think we're so interested in the possibility of your ambassador program and really assisting getting a boat in the water for year-round demo capability in Pensacola. So we're going to love to talk about that. Your presentation is on September 16th at the Jetty IoT in Pensacola, Florida. It's going to be at 10 a.m. Central Daylight Time. Thank you so much, Harvey, for chatting about the BeFoil 16, and I look forward to visiting with you in person and also giving you a little tour of the Pensacola Bay. Until then, I'm wishing you perfect pressure, low chop, and all the lift you need to foil more.
Thank you, and see you soon, Tim.
On the way to becoming the North American epicenter of high-performance sailing, Sail Pensacola is orchestrating initiatives that make recreational and professional sailors, local, regional, national, and international races, and sailing technology jobs in the Pensacola Bay sailing ecosystem. At Sail Pensacola, we say, sailing is our business. Visit our website at sailpensacola.org.